Hey everybody, Dr. Manning here. Welcome to the course. I wanted to just take a few minutes and talk about the use of large language models, ChatGPT, Claude, all that good stuff. You've obviously been under a rock if you haven't heard about these things in the past, especially if you're in this program. So I wanted to take just a few minutes and caution you about their use. I'm not saying that you're not going to see this in the news. You're already reading it, that software engineers are going to be obsolete and all that kind of junk. And I've been doing this 30 years. We're not going anywhere. We're going to have to change a few things about about how we do things and level up our game a little bit. But I wanted to take a few minutes and share an analogy with you about sort of the danger of using large language models out the gate from the beginning, if you will. Right? There's I'm gonna summarize what I'm gonna tell you in a short, just a short sentence that says there's really no substitute for good quality design up front. We're not talking about the engineering side of things. We're talking about when you're ideating about a feature or about a piece of software in the very, very early days, in the early hours of the project. There's no substitution for just sitting and thinking and drawing and writing about what you want to do. The biggest mistake you can make is jump right into an LLM and try to begin vibe coding some of this stuff to work it out. So I'm going to give you a quick analogy. Sorry, got the backache. Give you a quick analogy based on some of the stuff I've seen over the past 30 years, and history has certainly repeated itself over and over and over again. My bachelor's degree is actually in architectural engineering, and I'm going to date myself, and that's great. Way back in 1995, and when I started, and well, about the middle, I started in '93, and back then there was a paradigm shift, just like there is now, a very large paradigm shift. Everything in architectural engineering and architecture and any kind of engineering that required planning or drawing, everything was done by hand, by draftsmen, by engineers. There was a paradigm shift in the 90s where we were shifting over to computer aided design. As a matter of fact, in my bachelor's degree, my university got the very first CAD lab in existence. I think there's been about a dozen iterations of it since. But my point is, it was a big shift for all of us newbies or students to the game, right? Did we, to get prepared for a career, do we continue to learn to hand draw, which is an art form in itself, and it also has a technical backbone in itself? Or do we shift and start learning at that time something like AutoCAD or MicroStation, even though some of us didn't even have access to it at the time? Hook or crook, if you will, right? We all made it. So fast forward a little bit. I got my first job as a sophomore working as an architectural engineer in an engineering firm, and over the next 2 or 3 years, finished my degree, went to graduate school, and started actually teaching some of the same architectural engineering classes that I had taught. By this time, students were about 4 years into using computer-aided design pretty heavily. The college had made the shift to mostly all of their curriculum being changed over to using AutoCAD. Like I said, we had a brand new shiny lab, brand new shiny computers, nice big large format printers where you could come in and load your own paper and that kind of stuff. And these drawings are huge. They're usually 2 foot by 3 foot. So anyway, long story short, when I started teaching, I started noticing sort of this really interesting pattern that was emerging. And in a design heavy element like architectural engineering, I saw this more than in other elements, although I did teach an interior design class or two my first year of grad school, and I saw it heavily there. Students were jumping right into CAD to do their planning of their design. So they might have this idea in their head about what they wanted to do, but then they jump right into AutoCAD and they'd start planning it, or any CAD and start planning it. And over the course of the next 2 or 3 years, I really began to see this unfold where during final presentations of projects, those students that used something like CAD, in your case, something like a large language model, from the beginning, and didn't put the time and energy and brain power into sitting down and just ideating and really understanding what they were trying to do in the planning process and what the overall output was, were just decimated during their final presentations. Other students, other professors just destroyed their final presentations because they were short-lived. There were tons of shortcomings. And so I started putting a lot more research into this, and what I've discovered over the years, over the 30 years that I've been doing this now, most of that, by the way, has been in industry, although I've taught sort of on the side for about 20 years. What I've learned is if you would just sit down and put the energy into physically planning your projects and save the implementation, the heavy lifting down the road for something like an LLM, use it for debugging if you want to, use it for tearing the code apart to see where you're wrong, but don't use it to build the entire project from the beginning. There's so many things that you are missing because you haven't taken the time to go and just ideate. What I like to do, I think I have one around here somewhere. When I come up with a new project, I go to Target or Walmart or get them off of Amazon. I've got these little planning books. They're just small journals. They're about $6, and I use them for each project. And when I come up with a new piece of software, a new idea that I want to push out, that's going to take me maybe 6 months, or my team, if I'm working on it, maybe 6 months to a year. And the first usually 2 or 3 weeks, I take that book and I go sit outside. I find me a beautiful day, a beautiful place to sit that's quiet. I'll put my headphones on, usually with music with no lyrics, and I just ideate. I just fill that book full of ideas around what I want the features to be, how I want things to do, what the audience is going to look like, who's going to be the user base, what are the potential problems that they might run into, and I just ideate and just sit and sit and sit. And then obviously we can put that project right into the software development project process and start working our way through knocking out some structured code and some structured elements. But I say all this to tell you, be very, very careful when you're using large language models. There's Eric Church just did a commencement for I think it was NC State, and I think it's NC State, may have been someone else, but one of the Carolinas. And to quote what he said is perfect. The world doesn't need another cover song. It needs another original. And these LLMs are not trained on you. They're trained, in a lot of cases, on almost everything, but they're not trained on you. And going back to my original analogy, when those students, that just dove right into CAD and uses a crutch to kind of start, because, it has a lot of automated generating elements too, right? Build rooms and place rooms and tell you, what's good and what's bad. All that stuff was, sort of new to everybody and had a wow factor to it, just like LLMs do today. And I've seen it with other technology over the years, over and over and over again. There's just no substitute for you. So don't shortchange yourself, right? A lot of you are going to be, you're going to dive into trying to use these things for all sorts of reasons. And a lot of you are going to sort of break the rules, and you're going to say, I'm going to use it from the beginning, and I'm going to throw what I have in it to let it help me, right? Well, just remember, Gradescope has that stuff in it too. So be very careful. Just a word of caution, there's no substitute for you. And don't shortchange yourself, especially if you're learning to code. Maybe you're sort of an intermediate coder right now. Doesn't matter what you're a coder in. Doesn't matter what you're an engineer in. But if you're just sort of starting out with things, don't shortchange yourself. Mistakes are a tremendous learning environment for you, a tremendous learning opportunity for you, and it's like paying your dues, right? So, I also equate sort of using large language models from the beginning, like you're working, you've gone out and you've bought a brand new car or a newer car, and it breaks down on the side of the road, and you have no idea what to do to even think about fixing it, right? You didn't put it together. It's massive. It's a massive environment. You don't know what to do to even start, so you've got to call a specialist. If you're in that category of just starting out with things, that's what you're going to find when you start using LLMs, especially if you're vibe coding, trying to put things together. It just doesn't work like you think, and the overall output is massively bigger than what it needs to be. If you're in that group where you're sort of learning what to do, you need to be working on efficiency more than anything, as well as just learning your craft, obviously. But efficiency is really what gets you hired in this area. It's not necessarily about just coding. It's about how well can you code, how well can you do anything. So anyway, sorry to take up so much of your time. I ran a little long. You got any questions for me on this stuff? I've seen it over and over and over again. I'll build some more videos about ideation. But if you've got questions about it, reach out to me, please. Post some questions in the ed discussion so everybody can see them, and I'll answer them for you. And let's tear down that stigma about using LLMs and use them in the right way when we are afforded the opportunity to do that, which is not necessarily in this class. So again, have a great weekend. Have a great week. Today is Saturday, May the 16th. It is 2026, May the 16th. So if you're seeing this on YouTube or something like that, don't let this date itself. If it's a year later or something like that, maybe none of this is relevant. Who knows? So hope everyone has a great semester. Talk to you later.